Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined by Taylor Estes, managing editor of Horns 24/7. And Taylor, it is, we're less than a week from Christmas. It is, no, we're not. Sorry. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are.
December 20th, Tuesday, December 20th. And so we are one day removed from Bijan Robinson announcing officially that he is skipping the Alamo Bowl and foregoing remaining eligibility to prepare for the 2023 NFL Draft. And of course, tomorrow is signing day.
Well, when you're listening to this, today is signing day, but we're recording day before. Yeah.
So, a little trick there. But as you're listening to this, it is signing day. And there's so much excitement around signing day because of the 5-star talent at the top. But we'll get to that in just a second. Right now, we want to kind of reflect on the 5-star talent known as Bijan Robinson. And Taylor, it's been a heavy week for Longhorn Nation. They're saying goodbye to two greats with National Player of the Year Logan Eggleston, the volleyball National Player of the Year and now newly minted national champion, and Bijan Robinson. And when I think of Bijan Robinson, I think of his unbelievable ability to stay on his feet and his contact balance and his hands, and that 209 yards rushing against Kansas State in a must win for Texas on the road, snapping that road losing streak that Texas was suffering through with Steve Sarkisian. And then I think of that smile, and you've talked about it. I've talked about it on this Flagship podcast. The guy has sort of this unsinkable spirit. And I thought it was just so fascinating that he kept hammering home the point during the press conference that the thing he'll look back on with the most amount of pride has nothing to do with what he did on the field. It has to do with putting smiles on people's faces.
Yeah. And that's not, just lip service. That's not something that he's just saying to say it. That's who he is. I mean, he's a really, as everyone knows, a very elite special player. But when Steve Sarkisian talks about he's an even better person away from football than he is a football player, which is saying a lot considering he's the best running back in college football, it's 100% true. I mean, he just does everything the right way. And I think of when we had Jeremy Hills on our podcast, I think it was in the summertime, and he talked about Bijan Robinson. He was like, if there were more players like Bijan Robinson in the NFL, there wouldn't be off the field issues in the NFL. And that's a perfect way to sum up the type of character that Bijan Robinson is. He, presents himself in a first class way, both on and off the football field. And he's an irreplaceable talent. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, this guy is a really, really special talent. He was, coming out of high school. He lived up to his 5-star hype. He's a complete package, a complete kind of 5-tool player, if you may, if we're going to go with the baseball term there. But, as a running back, his agility, his, being able to catch the ball really well, yards after contact. I mean, you name it. This kid is just elite of the elite. And so you're not going to be able to replace him. But it's good to see him kind of have a chance to be able to say his kind of goodbye, with Texas kind of having a secret media availability for this. We were not supposed to talk about it when we got an email about Bijan being available on Sunday night for Monday, because they didn't want to kind of leak what was about to happen. But, it's going to be hard to replace him. And I can't wait to watch him in the NFL. He's definitely going to be a player that I will forever root for, at every stage of his career.
Yeah. And he was the last person to leave his press conference. He talked, people wanted to come talk to him, reporters, obviously, but UT staffers, And, 20 minutes after the press conference was over, it was just him and his mother. And they kind of looked around and were like, okay, I guess we can go now. But
Yeah.
that's who he is. I mean, he always made time for complete strangers. And, he just talked about how even when he would meet with us as reporters, if he felt like
Mhm.
someone was kind of having a rough day, he'd try to say something to lighten things up or put a smile on people's faces. And that's really something because when you're that talented, he wants to be in movies. I mean, he wants to be an actor. He's got the look. My wife loves his hair.
Yeah.
We bumped into him at one of those UT NCAA volleyball games, and she's like, "Wow, it's like it's I don't even know how you describe it because it's so cool. He's got that
Yeah.
all pulled back, and it almost looks like a Spartan helmet, the way you have it, yeah, or the Trojan helmet with the hair on top. But he's a cool dude. He could be all about himself, and he's all about everyone else. And I've covered the NFL. It is a cold, hard place, depending on where you end up. I mean, if you end up on a winning team, it's great. But if you're on a losing team or a team that has bad ownership or bad coaching, man, it can be a really, really tough place to be. And, something tells me that his spirit, his faith, his belief will lighten even the coldest NFL locker room. So I agree with you, Taylor. I'll be cheering this guy on as long as he's on television wearing a helmet and shoulder pads. And then who knows, maybe on our television as an actor at some point. He's made contacts. He knows people, Matthew
Mhm.
McConaughey,
Yeah.
culture. So who knows what's ahead for this guy? He could do anything.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, an example too, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but, it was last year, Bijan was at a media availability, and he was riding one of those electric scooters, and I was in an accident on one of those a while back, and, I saw it, and I was like, "Bijan, man, like, I really just wanna kick that over for you, like, you are too valuable to be riding one of these electric scooters." And I was in an accident and like it there did some damage. I was like, but I'm not worth anywhere near the amount of money that you are worth and what your career is worth. And just kind of said it in passing, didn't expect anything. And then he literally stayed after he had the interview session. We were all leaving, and he was like, "Hey Taylor, like I just want to see, are you okay from your accident?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it was fine." Like, I was like, thankfully I didn't get it too bad. And he was like, "Well, do you mind if I ask like what happened?" And so I explained it to him. And we talked for like 15 minutes, and I was like in my head thinking like he didn't have to say anything. He could have just been like, "Okay, this old lady's telling, like don't ride a scooter like an old lady telling like a kid what to do." But that's just like like he just is a genuine person, and like was asking me questions about it. I mean, it was just something where I was so blown away by that. I remember talking to my mom after. I was like, "You'll never like believe this." And like ever, I mean, my mom always loved Bijan Robinson anyway. And then when I told my parents that story, they both are like the biggest fans of his because they're like, you can just tell he's so genuine, and they've never been around him. And so he's just a, very, very special guy. And I feel like that's kind of, when he's saying about if he feels media is like having a bad day or something, he really would stay back and talk to us. And it just is a really cool type of cool cat. They don't make too many like Bijan Robinson. So it's been definitely a blessing and fun to cover him.
Yeah. And he's man, he flips a switch, as he said, when he goes on the field, when he, snaps that helmet up and, turns into a warrior, leaving stiff arm defenders in his wake. But the second he takes off that helmet, he's got that smile, and he's lighting up the, his area and all the people in it. And that's a unique gift for someone that talented. And
Yeah.
I think back to Ricky Williams, and Ricky is an enigma. And we learned after the fact, after he was at Texas, when he would keep his helmet on with his shaded visor doing interviews, that he had social anxiety. And he was he just wanted to kind of do what he did on the field and then kind of be left alone. And that's kind of the norm actually for a
Mhm.
lot of the superstars. And so look, it's early in his career, but the fact that he's so comfortable in his own skin, and I think it is because of his faith that it's just surprising. Like it's surprising. Um,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like, oh wow, uh,
Mhm.
he's got this. He just came off the field after 3.5 hours of bludgeoning his body into 11 defenders, and yet he's taking an extra minute for strangers, and it's just really something. So we're kind of rambling on here, but Bijan, we appreciate you, man. And
Yeah.
hopefully one of these days we'll get him on the Flagship Podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, now that he's, not a Texas student, we can actually talk to him whenever we want.
That's right.
Texas has very strict stranglehold on, any players talking with media unless it's a formal media setting. Sark has that even with his assistant coaches too, but he's a
Yeah,
free agent now for us, Chip.
that's right. Okay, so we mentioned that today. God, gotta wake up here. I'm a little groggy. Today is National Signing Day. I don't know. They used to call it the early signing period, but now it's when the majority of high school prospects sign their letters of intent. And then the first Wednesday in February is sort of the signing day part two.
Right.
So, Taylor, the excitement for this class really began. I mean, resounding excitement began in June when Arch Manning made it public that he was committing to Texas, and then what? 5 offensive linemen in this class followed almost immediately after that, and since then it's adding the number one running back in the nation, Cedric Baxter, the number one linebacker in the nation in Anthony Hill, who's probably the guy I'm most excited about because I think he's probably the most day one ready to come in and make an impact, as well as receiver Jonte Cook, who, if you watched DeSoto take apart Vandergrift in the state championship, you saw Jonte Cook looks like all those receivers who've been coming through Ohio State here recently, and a little bit like Xavier Worthy. So the star power at the top of this class with Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, Cedric Baxter. I mean, we're talking about 5-star talents, and then you throw in Malik Muhammad at corner, um, who's like the 41st ranked player overall in the class. It's a who's who of top 50 talent at the top of this recruiting class.
Yeah, it really is, and, I can't remember I'm not sure that there has ever been a signing class since I started covering Texas that had 4 24/7 Sports Composite 5 stars in it. There've been a couple of years where there's, like, 2, like, last year, I believe Texas had 2 in, from out of high school, I should say, not, considering, like, transfer portal or anything too. If you do that, it would been 3, but, with Calvin Banks and with Devin Campbell last year, but for them to have 4, I mean, that's something I haven't seen that I can recall. I think the most ever was 3, and, it's just it goes to show that regardless of, what has kind of happened on the field since Steve Sarkisian and his staff took over here at Texas, people are buying into what they're selling, that, and you don't get these type of players, like, the top of the top, if people don't really believe in what you are doing and don't believe in your product that you are putting on the field. It may not look perfect all the time, but they are buying into these coaches. I would say Jeff Choate probably deserves, at least Big 12 Recruiter of the Year with what he's. I mean, I think Mike. I read something the other day that he went like 4 for 4 with his top 4, linebacker or prospect, excuse me, in this class, and he got every single one of them. I mean, He's done a really, really solid job. I feel like he probably doesn't get talked about enough, or enough credit there. But I would probably rate him as a Big 12 Recruiter of the Year if I was had to vote in that chip.
Yeah, and you know, Mike and Hudson also pointing out that Jeff Banks played a role in the recruitment of Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill initially committed to Texas A&M. When you watch his film, he's one of the most destructive defensive players I've seen coming out of high school, maybe since Derek Johnson in 2001. I think he's going to be able to come in and process everything he needs to process and be able to play fast as a true freshman. He's going to be an early enrollee, which is great news for Jeff Choate and Pete Kwiatkowski, because we talked about this last week, Taylor, with DeMarvion Overshone moving on, that Texas was going to need David Benda to step up, Maurice Blackwell to step up, and some talented incoming freshmen. Now, that was before Anthony Hill announced his commitment on Thursday of last week. And once, obviously, that you talk about talented incoming freshmen, Anthony Hill is that guy. And I just can't wait, because there's nothing better than watching an instinctive, destructive middle linebacker, the likes like Brian Urlacher and Zach Thomas, Junior Seau, those type of players who just sense from their film study and everything else where the play is going before it starts, and they just take a line and just wreak havoc all over the field. And we saw Jaylan Ford have a great year this year, and I think he's just scratching the surface of what he can do in terms of rushing the passer, because Anthony Hill's even put together a little more compact than Jaylan Ford, and I think he's going to embrace contact. I think he's going to destroy blockers. I think he's going to be able to get offensive linemen off of him and make tackles. I'm really excited to see this kid in action. I'm excited that he has the spring to learn it, because Texas obviously has a big hole to fill with DeMarvion Overshone moving on, and I think they found their guy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a huge get, an absolutely huge guy. I mean, what is he ranked? I think he's I know he's number 1 linebacker in the country. I think he's like 19 in the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 4 in the state of Texas. I mean, that was a really big get for Texas. He's an early enrollee too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's huge, because that's definitely a position that, I mean, Jaylan Ford has not made any sort of announcement. We've kind of heard different things kind of going back and forth, weighing his options if he wants to return or if he wants to enter the NFL draft. It seems kind of like he may be leaning towards returning, which I don't think would be a bad thing for him in any way, shape, or form. I feel like what you said is perfect. Like, he's just kind of scratching the surface. But without DeMarvion Overshone, I mean, say what you will, like whether he was perfect or not all the time, he was at least consistent, at that linebacker, or, playing at the linebacker position after he made the move from safety. And so now linebacker once again kind of is that question mark going into next season, in a way that it was this year before people saw what Jaylan Ford was able to do. So I mean, with him being an early enrollee, going to be around for spring ball, that's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is. And the one knock on DeMarvion Overshone was he physical enough? He's long, he's 6'4", he's got long arms, he's unbelievable, sideline to sideline movement and that kind of quickness to cover the entire field. But would he come in and be physical and blow up a fullback or an offensive lineman and shed and make the play? And that's where I think Anthony Hill is different, and he can rush the passer. I mean, I think if Jaylan Ford comes back next year and he mans the middle, you can move Anthony Hill around, put him at strong side linebacker, put him at weak side linebacker. Although you do still have David Benda and Mo Blackwell at that weak side linebacker position, and Mo Blackwell is coming on. And so Texas has a chance next year to be outstanding at linebacker if Ford is back, if Hill can process, and if Mo Blackwell and David Benda, who can play all three positions, are healthy. And that was huge this year. The linebacking core stayed healthy because depth was an issue, but they didn't have to get into it because Ford played, Overshone played, and so that position helped. Obviously, the guys up front set the tone and made it easy for those linebackers to run around because they were eating up double teams. But that was a huge part of the defensive turnaround. So if you can't tell, I'm a little excited about Anthony Hill because look, Arch Manning, he's the guy, number one player in the class nationally. He's the Manning, lineage, all that, Taylor. But I think it's his desire to redshirt. So it's going to be delayed gratification on the Arch Manning time at Texas, possibly. Who knows? Things change, but I think the plan right now is for him to redshirt, and so which honestly, that's fantastic.
Exactly. I would say that is not a bad thing. Like that, I think sometimes fans can get so excited when they especially see a 5-star or a player of prospect of the caliber, and being kind of the headliner of the class, like an Arch Manning was. They expect day one starters, and it's like, you don't necessarily want your quarterback to be a day one starter. In fact, especially with him playing kind of in a private school in Louisiana, what type of competition has he played against? That's what a lot of the critics say or question about him. But it's not a bad thing if he is not playing next year. It does not mean he's a bust. It does not mean that Sark forgot how to coach quarterbacks or anything like that. It's if he doesn't see the field until 2024 at the earliest, that's not a problem. That's actually should be a very welcome development if it does come to fruition.
Yeah, there are two quarterbacks with their names up in the stadium, Vince Young and Colt McCoy, who both redshirted.
Yes.
So I would say that that is not a bad thing. And as you mentioned, well, now you can play in 4 games and still redshirt. So Arch Manning can get a taste of the field and get his confidence up going into that 24 season, when I think Texas will be in the SEC, and when that offensive line with all those studs who came in last year should be SEC ready. Hell, Kelvin Banks will probably be playing in his last season at Texas in 2024. So we're getting away from it here, but a lot of exciting names at the top of the list. And then, as you go down the recruiting class, Taylor, it's you backfill your offensive line room with 5 behemoths. I mean, Jaden Chapman, Trevor Gooseby, Connor Stroh. These guys may not be top 100 ranked players, but they fit what Kyle Flood wants. And with his coaching and being in the same room with guys like Kelvin Banks and Devin Campbell, they're going to provide the kind of depth that Texas needs to fortify that offensive line and maintain it. It's been a desert of talented offensive linemen at Texas for the last really since 2008. You've had the occasional Connor Williams and Sam Cosmi, but it's been way too far and few in between. And so it looks
those
like
were low 3-star rated prospects too, coming out of high school.
Right.
Both
Right.
Sam Cosmi
Right.
and
So don't
Connor
sleep
Williams.
on any of these guys.
Yeah, no.
Do not sleep on any of these guys, because what Kyle Flood looks for is not just big. He wants big and can move, and big and can move and are nasty and want to like get into that legal street fight that our friend Dan Neal always talks about. So I'm excited that they've put another strong class of offensive linemen together. And then, the guy who kind of stands out and you really need him to be as good as advertised is Sadir Mitchell, the defensive tackle, top 200 player out of New Jersey, because you can never have enough big, solid defensive tackles. It's the hardest position to recruit outside of quarterback in terms of finding the special ones who can make a difference. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State have sort of had their pick of those kinds of guys. But I think Texas, thanks to, the improved play of guys like Keandre Coburn, Moro Ojimo, who we mentioned last week, both have accepted invitations to the East-West Shrine game. They've set a standard now that we expect Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to bring in the 23 season and help develop Jere Bledsoe and Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins. We're ready for those guys to come on. So if Texas can just keep finding that, you really need 2 every class of those defensive tackles, then they can maintain that depth on that defensive line as well.
Yeah, and that's what you need. And like we've talked about this too, Chip. It's about stacking the big bodies in these recruiting classes. And if you did not listen to our Monday interview edition of the Flagship Podcast with Steve Wiltfong, you definitely should listen to that once this show's over. But he brought that up. When you look back at some of Tom Herman's signing classes under his staff, I mean, they were top 5, top 10 ranked signing classes, but it was skill players, and it's like, you're not playing 7-on-7, you're playing full blown football. You need to get big guys in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And that was something I feel like kind of fell off a little bit under Tom Herman. And I don't want to knock, I feel like Tom Herman and his staff did a really good job at recruiting, but I always made the comment, where's the beef in these classes? And you're getting a lot of beef here with this staff under Steve Sarkisian, and you need it. And it's good to see that Texas is stacking these guys, these linemen on both sides of the ball, because that is how you change the trajectory and program. Honestly, it starts in the trenches, it ends in the trenches. They're a lot of times the nameless, faceless guys, but they're easily the most, valuable and important ones on the field, probably aside from a quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Jonte Cook looks like a guy who can come in and help immediately. And that's exciting in the Steve Sarkisian offense. Steve Sarkisian, he just look at the number of 6-foot-ish, 170 to 180 pound receivers that he's coached either at Alabama, primarily at Alabama, Jalen Waddle and, Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith. Now Xavier Worthy, Jonte Cook fits right into that same mold. Burner, can take the top off of defense, and really excited to see what he can do, because Xavier Worthy's going into his 3rd year. You got to think he'll be moving on after his 3rd year, and then you got to have the next guy. And
right.
And especially in this Steve Sarkisian offense, he has to have that guy who goes deep and can push the defense back. And Jonte Cook fits that description perfectly. So I think it's and then you throw in Ryan Niblett. I mean, 5'10", 170 pounds, burner. That's speed everywhere. And you want to stress the defense. You want to have to make them make decisions on, in a panic state, because that's how you get busted coverages and big plays. And we know Steve Sarkisian's always hunting the big play.
Right. And it will be interesting to see kind of what Jordan Whittington decides to do, whether he's going to enter the NFL draft or not. He's kind of a similar one as Jalen Ford, where we've heard it almost seems with Jordan Whittington, it's like changes every day what we're hearing behind the scenes. So, but it'll be interesting. It will be good to see, assuming Brennan Marion is still on the staff next year, if he doesn't get hired away by any other programs, but him to be able to develop the guys he is recruiting, because that he was hired late last year, or late December, actually. I think he was like the last one hired, but these are the recruits that he's been going after, Ryan Niblett and Jonte Cook. Obviously he inherited Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, but the name that we also, I feel like people may be forgetting too for the receiver chip, is Isaiah Nayer. Steve Sarkisian was asked about him in his post regular season press conference. He said that he's not cleared or anything, but he's making the progress to get back and in the mix. And he's one to watch too next year. The receiver position may be in a pretty solid state, I would say, as it appears at this moment.
Yeah, Isaiah Nayer, 12 touchdown catches 2 years ago, and then he tears the ACL in fall camp or right before the season. And so that's a kid who really wants it, who by all indications was lighting it up in practice until the injury. So that's an exciting element to the receiving core to keep an eye on, because he's the 6'3", long-armed, long-limbed, big catch radius, good wheels down the field type receiver who Texas has been looking for a little bit. You like to have your burner, but you also like to have the big guy like Quentin Johnston at TCU or Xavier Hutchinson at Iowa State. And that just makes it that much more difficult, especially against a team who might not have big corners. So
the 50-50 ball guys too, especially,
Yep.
The Colin Johnsons and Lil Jordan Humphreys that Texas had previously.
That's right. So it's exciting, and there might be some excitement, good or bad, on, later today or on signing day. I'll just say it that way. If you've been following Mike Roach's coverage, there's been some concern about Derek Williams, the safety, and that's a player they really need in this class, obviously, because Anthony Cook moves on. They put Michael Taff on scholarship since our last Flagship podcast, which was really cool. Steve Sarkisian ended a meeting by saying, "Is everybody on the same page? Oh, and one more thing. Michael Taff, you're on scholarship." And you go, "Ah!" So Michael Taff, the former walk-on from Austin Westlake, 2-time state championship game defensive MVP, intercepted Quinn Ewers twice in Westlake state championship win over South Lake Carroll in 2020, goes on scholarship. And right now he's a leading contender to play the boundary safety position vacated by Anthony Cook. You've got Jaron Thompson at the free safety position, and you've got young guys coming on. Larry Turner Gooden, BJ Allen, they need to keep coming on. But a guy like Derek Williams, you need in this class. So it's exciting. And Malik Muhammad certainly fits the bill of the big corner, long-armed corner, coveted by everybody, Alabama, Ohio State, you name it. And that's a huge get. And kudos to Chris Gilbert, who used to coach at South Oak Cliff. He's now Sark's liaison to the high school coaches, played a huge role in the recruitment of Malik Muhammad. So this staff deserves a lot of credit for putting this class together.
Yeah, they do. And Mike on Tuesday did kind of a notes on Derek Williams' status. It's been one that's gone back and forth, whether he's going to sign on signing day or the early signing period, or push it to February. And, if you didn't read his VIP notes, get over to Horns 24/7 and check them out. But he even said they will wait and see with anticipation tomorrow, as in signing day. Even if they did hear he was going to sign, Mike's kind of still taking a wait and see approach with that one. So that's something that will play out. And it's kind of weird because we're talking about this on Tuesday, but I know this is airing on Wednesday. So by the time you hear this, it may already have played out. We don't know. So,
That's right.
yeah. But no, the staff deserves a lot of credit for the amount of talent, the positions that they really needed to fill. They did a really good job with that. So, yeah, I mean, back-to-back top 5 signing classes, not too bad.
Well, Taylor, before we get to love it or leave it, again, huge kudos to Jarrett Elliott, the women's volleyball team, an amazing 3-0 dominating national championship victory over Louisville. And, I wrote about Logan Eggleston and Bijan Robinson in the Morning Brew this morning. And I hope everyone gets a chance to read it because Logan Eggleston is, she's been on campus 5 years. She went through the Eyes of Texas controversy, the Black Lives Matter movement, the COVID-19 pandemic. And each step of the way, she got a little further in her development, the team's progress. They lost in the round of 32 in the NCAAs to BYU when she was a freshman. Jarrett Elliott said she couldn't sleep after that and just kept telling him, we're going to win the Natty. We're going to win the Natty. And then her sophomore year, they lose to Louisville in the round or in the Sweet 16. And there were players that she faced on Saturday night who were on that Louisville team who beat her as a sophomore. And then, her junior year, she gets to the national championship game. She in Texas lose to Kentucky. And then Madison Skinner, who had, 19 kills in that national championship game for Kentucky, it transfers to Texas and is playing with Logan Eggleston in the national championship against Louisville. And then, last year she got tight and she made a lot of errors and they lost in the Elite Eight. And Jarrett made adjustments. He brought in defense. He brought in Zoe Fleck, the 2-time libero of the year in the Pac-12. She was the unsung hero of this whole season. Logan Eggleston even said it. She was phenomenal. It was ridiculous watching her dig balls with one arm, backwards, forwards, sliding rockets. She always could get that ball up and in a way that the offensive players for Texas could get after it. And then Asia O'Neal, 5th-year senior, had open heart surgery while she was at Texas, her second open heart surgery. Her first was when she was 13. So to see those two sitting next to Jarrett at the podium after was just phenomenal. Jarrett said he was so relieved. He said, with this team, I just needed to stay out of the way. He said, I tend to be a nervous wreck. The closer we get to the national championship, I just needed to remain confident and tell him how much I believed in him because all I had to do was really turn him loose. But what a story, a 5-year story for those two, for Asia O'Neal, for Logan Eggleston, and for them to have the confetti rain down. What a way to go out. And now Jarrett Elliott, man, it's going to be tough to replace Logan Eggleston, who won the Heisman Trophy of women's volleyball this year. Awesome story. And Taylor, Texas basketball, no word yet on Chris Beard, what's going on there. He's still suspended indefinitely without pay. Texas has won another game. They beat Stanford. They have a tough game this week against Louisiana, team that's 10-1, has a 6'11", Jordan Brown averaging 20 points a game. This is going to be a good test at home for Texas. To me, this is the best test they'll have faced since Beard has been put on unpaid leave. So we'll keep you posted always over at horns247.com on what's going on there. Taylor, are you ready for some love it or leave it?
I am. Before we get to love it or leave it, we're going to take a really quick break, but stay tuned because we have more football talk and recruiting talk coming up. We'll be right back. And if you're watching us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, we will continue on here. Chip, you ready for my first love it or leave it?
I'm ready.
All right. First one is
signing day edition.
Signing day edition here. Yes, love it or leave it. Anthony Hill will be the day one starter at linebacker in 2023 as the replacement for DeMarvion Overshone.
Man, I hope so. I'm probably gonna go with my heart on this one and say that I'm gonna love it because Anthony Hill. Go watch his film. Just go to YouTube and type in Anthony Hill linebacker, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. To me, he's kind of a more physical version of DeMarvion Overshone. He doesn't probably have the elastic speed and length of Overshone, but man, he can get downhill and sideline to sideline with violence. So I'm going to love this. And I hate to put that on a kid, but I think Anthony Hill is putting it on himself. Honestly, I think Overshone leaving and the door opening for him is probably one of the big factors for him to come to Texas. I think he wants to play right away. So I'm going to love this. Taylor, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to love it too. Everything. If you just read his scouting report that Gabe Brooks did on him, he evaluated him as, with the 5 stars, they usually get evaluated like pretty early or multiple times, but he just has all of the tools. And literally in the first line of the scouting report, he says that he is a guy that can get immediate snaps at the Power 5 level. And that's not just because of him going to Texas. It's just that's how talented this kid is. So with DeMarvion Overshone moving on, I kind of feel like this is setting up a prime position for Anthony Hill to get those immediate snaps. So I'm gonna love it. No pressure, right, Anthony Hill? Like you haven't even taken a college class yet, but yeah, I think he has all the tools to definitely be a day one starter, or at least one that is coming off the bench and getting quality playing time.
All right, love it or leave it. Number 2.
All right, second one, love it or leave it. Texas 2023 recruiting class will go down as a better class than UT's 2022 signing class.
Ooh, interesting. You know what? I'm gonna go old school here, and I'm gonna leave this because that 2022 class with those offensive linemen, Kelvin Banks has already established himself as a all-conference type player. Cole Hudson started all year, got better, and now you're going to bring in, Connor Robertson is going to start to get snaps either at guard or he'll certainly be the backup center. And Cam Williams, the eclipse of the sun, big right tackle. I mean, I think it's going to be hard to. It's going to be hard to. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to give credit to the big fellas in that 2022 class. Taylor, how about you?
I'm going to leave it too, and because mainly for the offensive line, because I mean, as we're talking about quarterbacks, you don't necessarily want to expect your true freshman quarterback to be a day one starter. That's the same thing with offensive linemen. And I will say that Calvin Banks, Cole Hudson very surpassed any type of expectations that I had for them going into the season, not because I didn't think they were talented, but because a lot of times you don't want to have to rely on a true freshman, let alone 2 true freshmen, and let alone one who didn't even enroll until May. So, the fact that they came along so well, Calvin Banks not being an early enrollee, Cole Hudson, obviously he was the only one from that offensive line class last year. And they were so good. And it's not even just them, Chip, think about the guys that Texas was able to get in the transfer portal too. Say what you will about Quinn Ewers. He had an up and down season, but I'm not giving up on him. His ceiling is very, very high. Ryan Watts, I mean, my goodness, he's probably the the breakout player of the year for one of the breakout players of the year for Texas on that defense. And that's saying a lot because that defense was really good. So I'm going to leave it. I think that and that's not a knock about this 2023 recruiting class. I think, there's a lot of talent, obviously 4 or 5 stars in the 24/7 Sports composite. That's nothing to scoff at. That's nothing to brush off. But just with how I think the offensive lineman just playing so much better than I think I ever would have expected a true freshman to play, let alone 2 true freshmen. And, that it's hard to ignore that. So I'm going to also leave that too. But I think the 2023 recruiting class is going to be elite too.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah. You got some elite players in that class at positions where Texas has not been getting players drafted.
Right.
Receiver, offensive line. I mean, it's heck, even linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. All right. Love it or leave it, number 3.
All right. Final
Signing
one.
Day edition.
We're going to end with a volleyball one. Love it or leave it. The UT women's volleyball natty will go down as the feel-good story of the 2022-2023 academic year for Texas.
Ooh, that's interesting because that volleyball being a fall-ish sport means there's a lot of spring sports like track, softball. Softball played for the national championship last year. Tennis, women's tennis is the 2-time defending national champion. But I'm going to love this, Taylor, because of the stories of Logan Eggleston and Asia O'Neal and Zoe Fleck. I mean, my God. Zoe Fleck, she doesn't get the high-flying kills and stuff, but she's down there on the ground digging these balls out, keeping them from, losing these points after these rocket blasts off the arms of some of the best outside hitters in women's volleyball. So I'm going to love this. Now, I could be a prisoner of the moment, but I'll admit it, and I'm okay with that. Taylor, how about you?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn with this because I don't necessarily like agreeing with Chip on every single one, but I mean, it's a national championship. I mean, and UT women's volleyball has been kind of the bridesmaid, not the bride, for a really long time. I mean, I know this is Jared Elliott's, I believe, his second national championship, but the last one that they won was 10 years ago in 2012. So
that's right. They lost in the finals in 15, 16, and 20.
Yeah. And so it's hard not to say that, yeah, of course it's going to be the feel-good story. So I'm gonna love it too. I'm gonna go 3 for 3 agreeing with Chip. And
don't sound so beat up about it.
I know. I like when we kind of go back and forth, like have some combative moments here, but I think our listeners do too sometimes. But no, yeah, I mean, this is definitely the feel-good story of the year. And maybe, if who knows what Texas baseball does or anything, we could change our mind based off of what some of the spring sports is. But for the moment, I think that that's fair to say right now. So I will love it too.
That's fair. And we should also mention that, we celebrated I don't know how much we mentioned the 5-year anniversary of Chris Del Conte as athletic director, but think of all the national championships, 10 national championships in those 5 years, 4 of them last year, in addition to the 2 straight Directors Cup wins for Texas. So things are moving in the right direction. You've got all the facilities upgrades that have happened too. People are now in the Moody Center, the practice facility, the $60 million basketball and rowing practice facility. It's ridiculous. And we should have an announcement soon, Taylor, about a new indoor football practice facility. So stay tuned for that. I think that will happen right after the new year. So there you have it. There's a little nugget for you, kids. That's what you were waiting for those of you still listening right to the end of the Flagship Podcast. Maybe I should do that every week. Like, put a nugget right there after love it or leave it. But listen, everybody, it is, we won't talk to you again before Christmas. So everybody have a Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Hope everybody's getting some good family time. Taylor, you ready for Christmas?
I am. I'm actually going to pick up my parents from the airport in a few hours. They're flying in for the first time ever. I don't think they've ever been away from their house on Christmas since they got married, and they've been married for 3 years now, 52 years. So it's a big deal.
God
So
bless them.
I've been ready for a while now. I
Well,
didn't want
that's
to be like
awesome.
last minute freaking out right before they came. So yeah, but you ready?
I'm never ready, but I'm just gonna go with it. And you know, I'm just excited. My son's back from college. Daughter's doing well, and my wife is like unbelievable at the Christmas game. So I'm in good hands, even if I'm
That's good.
lagging. Even if I'm the laggard in the group. So
You just
uh,
celebrated 1 year wedding anniversary
that's
too,
right.
didn't you?
That's right.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thank
What'd you
you.
guys do for that? Trail of Lights, I think I
Yeah, we
saw.
did. We
Yeah.
went to the Trail of Lights, and you know what? I think we're probably gonna make that an annual experience. It's just so beautiful. It was actually a
Mhm.
beautiful night to do it. So, if you've never done the Trail of Lights at Zilker Park, do it. Get there early
Yeah.
though. Get there early.
Yeah.
Be the first ones in. All right. There you go. You got a nugget and a Christmas tip. So, thanks everybody for listening. Merry Christmas. For Taylor Estes, I am Chip Brown. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com. Don't forget about that incredible 50% off special, even for you month to month subscribers. You can upgrade to annual and get 50% off. Plus, you get Paramount Plus for a
Yeah.
year. Kidding me? So there's some Christmas shopping for you right there.
Yeah, free
Um,
gift. Free gift
yeah,
with purchase there.
there you go. Bonus. We love bonus. All
Mhm.
right. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Until next time, stay safe and keep the faith.